Bro, how did that one vid not get like any views? I don't understand. That's crazy to me. All right, that's actually crazy to me. But anyway, sorry, boys. All right. Oh shit. Cause I don't have hope. It's funny, man. Yeah, today we react to. Yeah, I know. I don't have my camera right now, but I have my camera and my headphones right now. But right now, right there in my other crib right now. My $8,000 million mansion. We try to lie to crib. Stop. But yeah, because yeah. But today we're gonna see what happens when you OD, clock out, go to sleep, eternal nap. You know what I'm saying, like that. But yeah, let's get to the video.
And this video could save your life. If you're one of the 131 million Americans.
I don't abuse drugs. I don't use drugs. If you count yeah, I don't abuse drugs. I don't use drugs. I don't know if I'm gonna ever overdose. I might say someone. Yeah, I might say someone, but I've not. This will ever happen to me because I don't.
Who use prescription drugs, or one of the millions more who partake in recreational drugs, smoking, alcohol, or even certain types of lemonade, you may be at risk of suffering an overdose. They've taken 1 million lives since 1999, and even if a drug overdose doesn't kill you, it can leave you in a debilitated state. And if you live in a country without universal health care, you might also end up overdosing on debt too. We're going to take a journey into the human body and find out the biology behind 9 different types of overdose, and most importantly, tell you exactly what to do if you or a loved one is suffering from one. Again, make sure you watch all the way to the end. Someone's life may just depend on it. Number 9. Cocaine overdose. This party drug, first popularized by the yuppies in the 1980s, is still responsible for a shocking number of overdoses today. Some of our most recent statistics on the matter showed it reaching a new height in 2015, with a 1.6 factor rise in cocaine overdoses from 2010. Derived and purified from the South American coca plant, cocaine induces feelings of short-term confidence and euphoria. It is known to be highly addictive, especially the specific subtype of crack cocaine. It's also an interesting edge case in that the quantity of cocaine required to induce an overdose, known as the state of cocaine toxicity, is extremely variable from person to person, depending on their unique physiological conditions. Chronic users are particularly susceptible, as they're more likely to take larger doses of cocaine to get the same high, putting them at a larger risk of reaching toxic concentrations. In terms of the actual physical effects cocaine has on you, as cocaine binds to proteins in the body, specifically monoamine transporters, neurotransmitter receptors, plasma proteins, voltage-gated ion channels, and metabolic enzymes, you'll see increasingly severe symptoms in the person overdosing over 3 distinct stages. In cases of acute, which is to say severe, cocaine toxicity, in the first stage, the person will suffer from headaches, nausea, vertigo, increased blood pressure, an irregular heartbeat, rapid and shallow breathing, increased body temperature, paranoia, irritability, and aggression. If you're noticing these symptoms in yourself while taking cocaine or in another person, seek medical attention immediately. But if medical attention isn't sought, things will progress to stage 2 of acute cocaine toxicity. This means an increased risk of encephalopathy. In layman's terms, brain damage, seizures, hypertension, even further increases in body temperature, and heart arrhythmia. This is the real danger zone. As anyone who suffers from epilepsy can tell you, seizures are nothing to mess with. But in truly severe cases of cocaine toxicity, it can get worse. Stage 3 for many is a point of no return. You may see a loss of reflexes, hypotension, cardiac arrest, a loss of vital functions, and respiratory failure. If you don't get medical attention in time, you might slip into a coma and die. This is why if you believe you or someone else is suffering from acute cocaine toxicity, you need to be vigilant and catch it while you're still in stage 1, or you may not get another chance. Cocaine also becomes an order of magnitude more dangerous when cut with other chemicals, but stay tuned, we'll get more into that later. Number 8. Heroin overdose. Heroin, one of the most depressing drugs out there, and also incidentally a powerful depressant. 1 in 10 heroin overdoses ends in death. And given how common the use of heroin is, that's an extremely concerning statistic. It's also highly addictive and shockingly prevalent. Even back in 2011, 4.2 million Americans over the age of 11 claimed to have tried heroin at least once, with 23% of them going on to become chronic users. This awful opioid has been illegal in the US since 1924, but that hasn't stopped it from proliferating massively and causing huge swaths of overdoses in its wake. So what are the mechanisms behind heroin overdose, and what factors, internal and external, cause them to be so deadly compared to cocaine? For starters, heroin is often transported in an extremely pure state, and highly concentrated heroin is incredibly easy to overdose on. When you use heroin, it binds to your mu, kappa, and delta receptors, triggering a host of effects. In safer doses, heroin users report a feeling of euphoria and weightlessness, but once you pass the extremely thin threshold for safe, the negative effects come in thick and fast. Heroin overdoses wreak havoc on your heart, lowering blood pressure to dangerous levels, and potentially causing arrhythmia or pulmonary edema, which can in concert give you a fatal heart attack or kidney failure. Another common risk factor for chronic heroin users is infectious endocarditis, an infection of the surface of the heart that's often caused or worsened by intravenous heroin use. But it isn't just your heart that a heroin overdose attacks. Dr. Karen Drexler, director of the Addiction Psychiatry Residency Training Program and an associate professor in Emory University's Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences Department, highlights the risk of heroin essentially cutting off your respiratory system during sleep. She said, usually when you're sleeping, your body naturally remembers to breathe. In the case of a heroin overdose, you fall asleep, and essentially your body forgets. Another sad common outcome with the deep sleep often brought on by heroin mixes with the nausea and vomiting that also come with heroin use. Fans of Breaking Bad might remember the harrowing scene of Jesse's girlfriend, chronic heroin user Jane, choking to death on her own vomit while unconscious in her bed. This is depressingly common during heroin overdoses, and it's exacerbated by an external factor that separates heroin from cocaine. Cocaine is a social drug often taken around others, whereas many heroin users choose to shoot up in their own homes. So when the overdose sets in, they die alone with nobody to help them. If you happen to encounter someone undergoing a heroin overdose, turn them on their side to avoid the risk of them choking on their own vomit and call for professional medical assistance immediately. If you're overdosing on heroin, all you can really do is hope that there's someone nearby who's willing and able to do the same for you. Number 7.
But they probably won't. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not saying it's just won't happen. I mean, it really just won't happen because when some people see something happening, bro, the chances of them helping you are so fucking slim. It's not even funny, bro. Like whether you got shot, you're in a car. I mean, car accident, you might get some help. You might get some help. Anything else, bro? I don't know, man. I don't know.
MDMA overdose, also known as Molly, and for the more retro among us, ecstasy. This synthetic psychoactive heightens perception and provides a sense of euphoria. It's often taken in hits prior to going to clubs or raves to sharpen the experience, but like anything sharp, you'll find yourself getting cut if you're caught on the business end. MDMA influences the body's central nervous system, specifically 3 key neurotransmitters: dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. This produces a feeling of pleasure and excitement that keeps the users coming back while having a potentially dangerous influence over the rest of the body. If you're taking several doses of ecstasy in a short period of time, mixing it with other drugs, or pairing it with strenuous physical activity such as intense dancing in a high-temperature environment such as a nightclub, you may be at risk of an overdose. The signs include increased heart rate and arrhythmia, body temperature dysregulation, severe overheating and muscle breakdown, and kidney failure resulting from this overheating, as well as seizures. And if death from overheating wasn't enough of a risk, MDMA can also cause lethal serotonin syndrome, meaning that if you believe that you or someone else is having an overdose of MDMA, You need to get in contact with medical professionals immediately. No party is ever worth the risk. Number 6. Nicotine poisoning. If you had your first cigarette too young, took a big old puff off a cigar at a social event, or found yourself on the wrong end of a snooze bug in Amsterdam, you know what it means to be nic sick. While cases are thankfully quite rare, it's possible to overdose on nicotine just like it is any other drug. So, how does a nicotine overdose work? And are you at risk of having one? Like with all other drug overdoses, the effects are proportional to the size and the health of the victim. It's why most cases of nicotine poisoning are accidental and affect children due to their lower body weight. There are plenty of ways you can take in your toxic dose of nicotine, from standard method of inhalation, whether by cigarettes, cigars, or vapes, to absorption through the skin via liquid or patches, and ingestion through the mucosal membranes in the mouth or intestines. There are a number of different theories as to how much nicotine is a toxic dose. There's a reasonably broad consensus around the idea of 50 to 60 milligrams of nicotine per kilo in an adult weighing 70 kilograms or 154 pounds. It's extremely unlikely you'll ever smoke yourself to death in the short term, though there has been one case report where 2 brothers were killed after smoking 17 to 18 pipes of tobacco in a row. You'll probably be dealing with lung cancer in the long term, but that's not an overdose. Much like cocaine overdose, nicotine poisoning is separated into stages, early and late. Symptoms of early-stage nicotine toxicity will mainly be unpleasant but ultimately harmless. Expect vomiting, abdominal pain, sweating, rapid, heavy breathing, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and if you're really unlucky, seizures. Late-stage things get nastier. Think diarrhea, low blood pressure, slow heart rate, abnormal heart rhythms, shock, muscle weakness, respiratory failure, comas, and in rare cases, death. Yikes. The early phase will take place between 15 minutes to an hour after reaching toxic levels of nicotine, and the late phase will occur between 30 minutes and 4 hours. The most common causes of death in severe cases are paralysis of the muscles that control breathing, fluid buildup in your airways, and the catastrophic failure of your heart and blood vessels. Again, if you're feeling a little too anxious about this, we've got to stress that these outcomes are pretty rare. But given the long-term negative effects that smoking can have on your health, if you're looking for a good excuse to
even if this doesn't kill you off rip, cancer will. So either way, you're fucking cooked, man. I ain't gonna lie.
Start quitting, feel free to take this as a sign. Number 5. Caffeine overdose. If you don't feel like you're fully human until you've had your 3rd coffee of the day, or you slam energy drinks on the reg to get through another gaming all-nighter or a 3 a.m. college cram session, your chest might have tightened upon seeing that caffeine overdoses are even a thing. But caffeineism is a serious issue, and some high-profile deaths have been linked to it in the last few months. This is the dark tale of the Panera Bread charged lemonade, derisively nicknamed the lemonade that kills you on social media, which has been linked to the deaths of multiple people in the media. Why? For issues related to severe caffeineism. A large cup of charged lemonade has more caffeine than a 12-ounce Red Bull and a 16-ounce Monster energy drink combined. That's 390 milligrams of caffeine. For context, the FDA recommends.
Damn, I've only ever consumed 360. I wonder what 390 is gonna do to me. Let's find out. These stuff, but I don't know. Why the fuck is y'all even selling energy drink lemonades, bro? What? My nigga, Panera Bread? Bro, you guys are a restaurant known for I don't even know. I've ever gone there before in my life. But you're like a somewhat Olive Garden restaurant. What the fuck are we doing selling energy drinks? Come on, man. Let's do better, Panera.
That healthy adults consume 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. So if you're feeling parched after your Panera Bread and feeling like going back for a second serving of charged lemonade, you're quickly heading into the danger zone. It's generally considered true that caffeine has a half-life in the blood from 1.5 to 9.5 hours. You've got a large window of overdose risk to play with. On the more minor end, if you exceed your daily dose of caffeine by a considerable margin, you can look forward to symptoms like dizziness, diarrhea, dehydration, insomnia, headaches, fever, and irritability. So you'll feel terrible and won't be fun to be around. But you should immediately get yourself to a hospital if you start to experience the more severe end of the symptoms. We're talking about breathing struggles, vomiting, hallucinations, confusion, chest pain, rapid or irregular heartbeat, muscle spasms, and convulsions. Caffeine attacks your heart, lungs, and central nervous system, and considering that around 80% of the world consumes caffeine in some form, There are a lot of people at risk of this particular kind of overdose.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I have to take a shit, but I'll be right back.
Coffee and energy drink addicts need to be particularly aware. Thankfully, death by caffeine overdose is pretty rare outside of people with pre-existing conditions that give them sensitivities, such as heart problems. If you get to the hospital in time, you can have your symptoms treated a lot easier than some of the harder drugs in this video. However, the treatment will not be pleasant. To help get the excess caffeine out of your system, you might be given a powerful laxative or even have your stomach pumped. Still better than being another life taken by a lemonade that kills you, right? Number 4. PCP or phencyclidine overdose. Also known as angel dust, not to be confused with the has-been hotel character of the same name, this dangerous hallucinogen was one of the most scandalous drugs of the 80s and 90s, with countless urban legends of people high on PCP pulling off supernatural feats of superhuman strength or performing horrific acts of depravity. A lot of these tales are hugely exaggerated and sensationalized. But what is true is that PCP can still be an extremely dangerous drug to whoever's taking it, especially if they take too much. Overdose symptoms begin to kick in after the user has exceeded a dosage of 0.05 milligrams per kilogram of the user's body weight. The general consensus is that a dose of 20 milligrams or more will be a fast track towards seizures, comas, and eventually death. The effects of PCP are significantly more enduring than most other drugs too. It has a half-life of 21 hours and a full elimination window of 42. But even after this, there's a decent chance that the liver and kidneys won't have fully flushed it out of the system because of PCP's tendency to bind to fat tissue. This long period of effect plus the incredibly low dosage threshold for overdose makes PCP a real biological force to be reckoned with. So how can you tell when someone is overdosing on PCP? Thankfully, the signs aren't exactly subtle. Catatonia, schizophrenia and psychosis, disassociation, violent behavior, hallucinations, involuntary movements, high blood pressure, and seizures. It's an overdose that's often as unpleasant for the people around the victim as the victim themselves. If you see any of this unfolding, keep your distance and call medical professionals immediately. Needless to say, someone undergoing a PCP overdose will be behaving extremely erratically, so you may be putting yourself in danger if you engage directly. Number 3. Alcohol poisoning. Yes, alcohol is a drug, and just like any drug, it's possible to overdose on it, an unfortunate condition commonly known as alcohol poisoning. There are 2 ways to get alcohol poisoning: binge drinking vast quantities of low-concentration booze, or downing a comparatively small amount of highly concentrated alcohol. But no matter what path you take to get there, you get the same result. You're taking in alcohol faster than your body can process it, and that buildup can reach toxic levels surprisingly fast. When your blood alcohol content becomes too high, you're in trouble. If the victim appears confused, severely slurring their speech, or is unable to speak, is unable to coordinate their movements, is vomiting profusely, is urinating or defecating in their pants, is experiencing skin discoloration, is breathing slowly or irregularly, is experiencing a loss of consciousness or even seizures, then they might be experiencing severe alcohol poisoning and you need to act immediately if you want to ensure that they make it through the night. Stay with the person to ensure they don't choke on their own vomit. If they're conscious, sit them upright. If they're unconscious, arrange them into a recovery position. Call for professional medical assistance as soon as possible, or they might have liver or heart failure to look forward to. Even if you're young and healthy, you should take your alcohol consumption in moderation. Your older self will thank you. Number 2. Fentanyl overdose. Few drugs are more feared and reviled than fentanyl, one of the deadliest opioids in the world. Deaths due to fentanyl overdoses have been on the rise every year since 2021, and there are a number of frightening reasons why. It's cheap to make compared to heroin or cocaine, which is why drug dealers often cut it with those drugs to make them go further, often with catastrophic results because fentanyl is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. Experts consider 2 milligrams of fentanyl to be a lethal dose, which isn't great news because many drugs contaminated with fentanyl contain upwards of 5 milligrams. While we don't want to inject fuel into the negative stereotypes and fear-mongering on fentanyl, there are definitely causes for concern. The CDC announced that fentanyl is the leading cause of death among adults aged 18 to 45 in the United States, an incredibly bleak statistic. Fentanyl also pops up as an active ingredient in counterfeit versions of a huge number of popular drugs, including oxycodone, Adderall, and Xanax. You don't have to go looking for fentanyl. If you dabble in illicit drugs, it may come looking for you. You must be vigilant and act quickly if you want to save someone from a fentanyl overdose. These are some of the key symptoms: pinpoint pupils, shallow or even no breathing, lips or fingernails becoming blue or grayish, a gurgling, wheezing, or heavy snoring sound, and a lack of response to stimulus such as pain. If you start seeing someone act like this, there is not a moment to waste. The FDA has approved one drug, naloxone, which can provide emergency relief from the fast-acting effects of fentanyl overdose. Having a supply of naloxone on hand, usually in the form of a nasal spray, can be a literal lifesaver if you or a loved one is at risk of fentanyl overdose. But naloxone is ultimately just a way of buying time. Someone experiencing a fentanyl overdose needs to be taken to a hospital as quickly as possible to ensure their survival. After all, nobody wants to become another part of those chilling statistics. Number 1. Meth overdose. Thanks to prestige TV shows like Breaking Bad, crystal meth is one of the most infamous drugs on the streets today. This cheap psychostimulant blights many of the poorer parts of the United States, with 2016 data indicating that 33 million Americans were using methamphetamines. The consequences are steep. As the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration reported, 150,000 methamphetamine toxicity hospitalizations in 2011 alone. These are some stark numbers no matter what way you slice it. But why is meth so dangerous? Meth stimulates the central nervous system and increases output for a number of neurotransmitters, including dopamine, the key chemical in our physiological reward pathways. It sends the body into overdrive, creating feelings of euphoria and stupendous energy at the cost of a long-term meth psychosis, including delightful symptoms like crank bugs. What are crank bugs, you ask? If you've seen pictures of chronic meth users, you might notice their skin is covered with small lesions. This is often caused by skin picking habits, sometimes developed due to their belief that bugs are crawling under their skin. Actual meth overdoses are separated into two types: acute overdoses and chronic overdoses. Acute overdoses are caused by someone accidentally taking too large a dose of methamphetamines, resulting in immediate and catastrophic results. The body's vital systems quickly become overclocked, resulting in organ damage, heart attacks and strokes, or even death. Acute overdoses are common in first-time users who haven't acclimated their bodies to the drugs, hence the popular slogan, "Meth, not even once." Chronic overdoses are cumulative, resulting from frequent methamphetamine abuse over a longer period of time, slowly breaking down the victim's body. The most common death awaiting long-term meth users is organ failure, but anyone who has struggled with meth addiction personally or through loved ones will be able to tell you the physical and mental changes before this will be stark and noticeable. Personality changes, rapid weight loss, rotten teeth, infections at injection sites, in the case of those abusing meth intravenously, and often severe mental health issues. In terms of acute meth overdoses, there are some signs to look out for before things get too severe. Dangerously high blood temperature, blood pressure spikes, chest pains, confusion, anxiety, pupil dilation and rapid eye movement, vomiting, nausea, difficulty breathing, tremors, seizures, and convulsions are all the ones to watch out for. If you notice any of these in a meth user, call a medical professional immediately. Overdoses aren't a cheerful subject for anybody, but they're sadly a fact of modern life. And while it's easy to shy away from dark subjects like this, if you can memorize the signs and share this video with your friends and loved ones, you might just save somebody's life. Now check out what happens to your body when smoking weed, or watch this instead.
Not gonna lie, that took way longer than expected. I'm surprised this shit was no damn 30 minutes. But yo, I just thought of a W Pro card. I'm so sorry, I really am, bro. You know, taking shit, phone in hand, watching car. You feel me? Like, I'm sorry. It's one of those, man. It's like with the newspaper in your hand, except I have never read a newspaper in my life, and yeah, but I saw the Fire Pro card. You know, it was small. I could go like this, like that. Come on, man. But yeah, WVI boys, gonna catch y'all tomorrow though. Sorry I wasn't here for to react to it for majority of it, but you know, shit. But yeah.